How much success is enough for us? Like, we can keep chasing success until we think we've reached enough, but are we ever going to be satisfied? This is a question that really plagues me, and I think the world tells us that wisdom, wealth, and recognition are the major pleasures in life. But I feel the Bible and Scripture always asks us a deeper question. Where do these gifts ultimately point? In 1 Kings chapter 10, we're going to unpack the visit of Queen of Sheba, Solomon's astonishing wisdom and wealth, and why even the greatest king, one of the greatest kings in Israel's history, can only point to someone greater. And I'll give you one practical action to help you seek Christ above every other earthly success. And this week, in this episode of Biblical Unlocks, this show is designed to help build your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. If you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Now let's get a little bit of context into the chapter. So 1 Kings chapter 10 is going to record the famous visit of the Queen of Sheba, who travels a great distance to test Solomon with some difficult questions after she hears that he is very wise. And she's actually overwhelmed by his understanding, the splendor of his kingdom, and the blessing of the Lord upon all of Israel. The chapter is then going to describe how Solomon's immense wealth, all of his influence, his unending prosperity, and how all of these things show that God's promises to him have been filled abundantly. Not only fulfilled, but filled all the way. And what's interesting as well is that these descriptions are going to prepare us for the danger that a great blessing can actually become a temptation for us if our heart begins to trust in the gifts rather than the gift giver. So let's read verses 1 to 13. Focus here is going to be the Queen of Sheba. She's going to visit Solomon. My question to you is, why do people travel so far in search of true wisdom? Verse 1. When the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, fame due to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with riddles. She came to Jerusalem with a very great retinue, with camels bearing spices, and very much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she told him all that was on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba had observed all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food of his table, the seating of his officials, and the attendance of his servants, their clothing, his valets, and his burnt offerings that he offered at the house of the Lord, it took her breath away. So she said to the king, "The report was true that I heard in my own land of your accomplishments and of your wisdom, but I did not believe the reports until I came and my own eyes saw it. Not even half had been told me. Your wisdom and prosperity far surpassed the report that I had heard. Happy are your wives, happy are these your servants who continually attend you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. Because the Lord loved Israel forever, he has made you king to execute justice and righteousness." Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold, a great quantity of spices, and precious stones. Never again did spices come in such quantity as that which the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Moreover, the fleet of Hiram, which carried gold from Ophir, brought from Ophir a great quantity of almug wood and precious stones. From the almug wood, the king made supports for the house of the Lord, and for the king's house, lyres also, and harps for the singers. No such almug wood has come or been seen to this day. Okay, so the first thing I want you to pay attention to is the fact that the Queen of Sheba comes all the way to Jerusalem because, and this is something that is really important, genuine wisdom, true wisdom will draw people towards its source. She heard reports of Solomon's wisdom, but she wants to see for herself whether or not it is true. And her journey reminds us about something very important about the human heart. That is that it longs for answers. And these answers cannot be provided by wealth, or power, or human achievement, none of this. True wisdom is worth seeking no matter the cost. It is worth seeking the truth, and ultimately, we know who the truth is. The truth has a name. His name is Jesus Christ. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, The queen is most impressed by Solomon's worship of the Lord, right? Because his worship of the Lord cannot be separated from the God who gave it. So she sees, wow, he's a wise king, and the kingdom is ordered around the worship of the living God. So the greatest testimony of Solomon is not his riches, because it was never his riches, because his riches could be taken away, all of these things. These are material, perishable goods. But the visible blessing is that all of the people of Israel are living under God's gracious rule. That is the most important thing here. Okay, let's take a look and see verses 14 to 22. We're going to pay attention to Solomon's great wealth. Verse 14, the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 660 talents of gold, besides that which came from the traders and from the business of the merchants and from all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land. King Solomon made 200 large shields of beaten gold. 600 shekels of gold went into each large shield. He made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 minas of gold went into each shield, and the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. The king also made a great ivory throne and overlaid it with the finest gold. The throne had 6 steps. The top of the throne was rounded in the back, and on each side of the seat were armrests, and 2 lions standing beside the armrests, while 12 lions were standing, one on each end of a step on the 6 steps. Nothing like it was ever made in any kingdom. All King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was not considered as anything in the days of Solomon. For the king had a fleet of ships of Tarshish at sea, with the fleet of Hiram. Once every 3 years the fleet of ships of Tarshish used to come, bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Okay, a few things here. We see Solomon's incredible wealth in a lot of detail here. And again, this is demonstrating the astonishing fulfillment of God's promise. God pledged to give Solomon riches in addition to his wisdom, and he faithfully kept his word. Obviously, no brainer. And we see a repeated emphasis on gold, luxury, and abundance here, but it asks us to question our own desires, right? It's asking us to say, hang on a minute, are these blessings, are they going to remain servants of us, or are they eventually going to become our masters? Material wealth is a gift to be stewarded, not an identity to be treasured. And this is something we need to pay attention to. And then the second thing here is that, Solomon's gold, shields, his luxurious throne, all of these are emphasized because they reveal something. They reveal the glory of these earthly kingdoms. But these symbols display splendor, yes, but these treasures do not last forever. Where is Solomon's throne now? Where are his gold ornaments and all of these things? They are gone. Human greatness, even if it's the most impressive thing in the entire world, ultimately remains temporary when we compare it to God's eternal kingdom. So the earthly glory that we have fades, but the heavenly treasures that we aspire for endure forever. Okay, let's read verses 23 to 29 now. We're going to see Solomon's worldwide fame and influence. And I want you to question, why is it that so many different leaders of every nation come to hear Solomon's wisdom? Verse 23, thus King Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom. The whole earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put into his mind. Every one of them brought a present, objects of silver and gold, garments, weaponry, spices, horses, and mules, so much year by year. Solomon gathered together chariots and horses. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he stationed in the chariot cities and with the king in Jerusalem. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stone, and he made cedar as plentiful as the sycamores of the Shephelah. Solomon's import of horses was from Egypt and Kue, and the king's traders received them from Kue at a price. A chariot could be imported from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. So through the king's traders they were exported to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Aram. Okay, so let's go through this final section. Lots of rulers come to hear. From every nation they come to hear Solomon's wisdom, right? So It's interesting. The whole earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put into his mind. Why? Because God's covenant with Abraham is beginning to bear some fruit. We heard that Israel was going to be a blessing to all of the nations, right? And now we're getting to see a glimpse of that blessing is coming from the knowledge of the true God. Israel is becoming a light that attracts the surrounding world. And this is anticipating the day that God's salvation will reach every nation through Jesus Christ, first thing. And the second thing is, we see Solomon's horses, chariots, and in his international trade is appearing right at the end of the chapter, and this is going to subtly prepare us for what's going to come next. His achievements are impressive, of course, but they are temptations. And we're going to be warned about these temptations as we carry on through 1 Kings. Let's see how this chapter fulfills Jesus Christ. So, the Queen of Sheba traveled across the ancient world because she wanted to hear Solomon's wisdom. But Jesus declares that someone infinitely greater than Solomon has now come. Because Jesus Christ, he's not just a king, he is the King of Kings. He is the eternal wisdom of God made flesh. Solomon, he answered a lot of difficult questions, of course, but Jesus answers the deepest problem of humanity, which is our sin, through his life, death, and resurrection. The wealth, the glory of Solomon's kingdom all point beyond themselves to an everlasting reign which is not perishable through Jesus Christ. All of Solomon's riches have faded. His kingdom is going to be divided. His throne is going to be passed away. But Jesus Christ's reign is eternal and forevermore. He offers treasures that nothing can destroy. This is why we read in Matthew chapter 12, verse 42, "The queen of the south will rise up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, because she came from the ends of the earth to listen to the wisdom of Solomon, and indeed something greater than Solomon is here." The Queen of Sheba traveled to meet the wisest king on earth, but today every single person is invited to come meet the one who is infinitely greater than Solomon. That is Jesus Christ. Okay, so how can we apply this chapter in our everyday life? We need to seek Christ before any of our successes. Christ before success. The reason why is because if we're going to pursue a goal, like for example, we want to earn more money, or we want to, get better grades at university, or we want to have more friends, whatever your goal may be, you need to ask yourself, is this going to help me know Christ more deeply, or is it just going to make me more successful? And the answer should actually shape what your priorities are. And the second thing is, you need to hold your blessings lightly. There are going to be material blessings that you achieve or receive from God, but we need to use them intentionally to bless other people, because every single gift has been given to us by the ultimate gift giver. They shouldn't be our masters. Alright, so that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. We learnt that true wisdom draws people towards God, not just towards the gifts themselves. Every blessing ultimately points back to the faithfulness of God. God's wisdom, God's kingdom is meant to bless and attract the other nations, and that Solomon's wisdom, Solomon's reign, is ultimately pointing towards the eternal reign of Jesus Christ and the true wisdom of God, the eternal King. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate the show and follow. Next time we're going to go through the tragic turning point of 1 Kings chapter 11, where Solomon's heart is going to be gradually led away from the Lord, and we're going to see the subtle danger of compromise and the cost of his divided devotion, and why Jesus Christ is the only perfect and faithful King. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate the show and follow. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.